Gruesome end of Park Ranger Leo Martinez by Grizzly Bear. How will this story escalate? To find out, watch the video to the end. But first, please subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications to get more stories like this. The chilling morning air clung to the dense pines of Yellowstone National Park, wrapping the entire forest in an eerie stillness. Park Ranger Leo Martinez adjusted his cap and tightened his jacket against the crisp cold. His breath clouded in the air as he surveyed the path ahead. It was his fourth year on the job, and while he had encountered many surprises in the wild, today's atmosphere felt different. He had received a call from a distressed camper about an unusual commotion deep within the forest, growls, cracking branches, and what sounded like a fight. Leo didn't dismiss it as just another overreaction. Wildlife in Yellowstone, particularly grizzlies, had been more active than usual, and territorial disputes weren't uncommon during the season. The sun struggled to rise over peaks, casting long, ominous shadows over the forest trail. Armed with a tranquilizer rifle and a sense of duty, Leo pushed deeper into the wilderness, his boots crunching over the fallen leaves and twigs. The sounds of nature, usually a comforting presence, now seemed muted, as if the forest itself were holding its breath. Leo's radio crackled to life, breaking the tense silence. "Ranger Martinez, this is HQ. Any updates?" "Nothing yet," he replied, keeping his voice low. The camper's description was vague. "No visuals so far, but I'll proceed cautiously." "Copy that. Keep us posted. And remember, if it's a grizzly, don't take risks. Wait for backup if needed." Leo acknowledged the message, but he was determined. Yellowstone was his home, and its safety was his responsibility. Besides, he had faced bears before. While intimidating, they were predictable creatures when understood and respected. He tightened his grip on his tranquilizer rifle and moved forward, the forest growing denser with each step. Suddenly, a low guttural growl echoed through the trees, stopping him in his tracks. His heart rate spiked as he scanned his surroundings. The growl wasn't distant. It was close, too close. He took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. Cautiously, Leo stepped off the trail, following the sound. The underbrush grew thicker, each step requiring careful navigation. He spotted a clearing up ahead and crouched low, approaching silently. As he peered through the foliage, his blood ran cold. In the clearing stood a massive grizzly bear, its fur matted with blood. The animal towered over the remains of a deer, its powerful jaws tearing into the carcass. But what caught Leo's attention wasn't just the bear's size or the gruesome scene, it was its behavior. The grizzly wasn't eating for sustenance. Its movements were erratic, almost frenzied, as if it were consumed by rage rather than hunger. Leo's instincts screamed at him to retreat, but his training urged him to observe. Something was wrong with this bear. He adjusted the tranquilizer rifle, steadying his aim. His plan was to subdue the animal and call for a wildlife specialist to investigate. But before he could act, the bear's head snapped up. Its dark eyes locked onto Leo's position, and a low growl rumbled from its chest. "Easy now," Leo whispered, his voice calm but firm. He slowly backed away, keeping the rifle trained on the grizzly. But the bear wasn't backing down. It charged with alarming speed, crashing through the underbrush like a freight train. Leo fired the tranquilizer, the dart embedding itself into the bear's massive shoulder. The creature stumbled but didn't stop. Adrenaline surged through Leo as he turned and ran, knowing full well the bear could outrun him in seconds. The forest blurred around him as he sprinted, his mind racing for a plan. The tranquilizer would take time to work, but he wasn't sure he had that time. The bear's snarls grew louder, its heavy footfalls closing the distance. Leo spotted a cluster of boulders up ahead and made a beeline for them. He scrambled up the rocks, his hands slipping on the cold, damp surface. The bear lunged, its claws raking against the stone just inches below him. For a moment, Leo thought he was safe. But the grizzly was relentless. It clawed its way up the boulders, its massive frame shaking the rocks with every movement. Leo searched desperately for an escape, his options dwindling by the second. The bear reached the top of the boulders, its eyes wild with rage. Leo raised his tranquilizer rifle again, but before he could fire, the bear swiped at him with its massive paw, sending the rifle flying out of his hands. The force of the blow knocked him backward, and he landed hard on the ground below, pain radiating through his body. Dazed but still conscious, Leo tried to crawl away, but the grizzly was on him in an instant. Its massive paw pinned him to the ground, its hot breath washing over him. Leo stared into the bear's eyes, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. He didn't see an animal acting out of instinct. He saw fury, raw, unbridled rage. The bear's jaws closed around Leo's shoulder, the pain searing and immediate. He screamed, his voice echoing through the forest. His mind raced, grasping for any sliver of hope. His free hand groped blindly for a rock, a stick, anything he could use as a weapon. The bear roared, its grip tightening. Blood soaked through Leo's uniform, the world around him dimming as shock and blood loss took hold. But just as his vision began to blur, he heard a new sound, shouts, and the crackle of a radio. "Ranger Martinez, we're here." The shouts grew louder, accompanied by the distinct sound of footsteps crashing through the underbrush. Leo's fading consciousness clung to that sliver of hope as backup arrived. The grizzly paused, its ears swiveling toward the commotion. For a fleeting moment, it hesitated, its wild eyes darting between Leo and the approaching rangers. "Leo? Hang on," one of the voices yelled, panic and urgency intertwined. The bear snarled, the primal sound reverberating through the forest, but it didn't retreat. Instead, it roared again, a guttural declaration of defiance. One of the rangers fired a warning shot into the air, the sharp crack of the rifle echoing through the clearing. The sound startled the bear, and it released its grip on Leo, stepping back but not leaving. Leo gasped for air, the sudden release from the bear's crushing weight both a relief and a torment as pain radiated from his wounds. His vision swam, but he could make out the forms of 3 rangers, their rifles aimed steadily at the bear. "Stay back," one of the rangers ordered, his voice commanding and firm. The bear growled low, its muscles tensing as if preparing to charge. Another ranger took aim, her finger hovering over the trigger. "Take the shot," she called out to her partner. "Not yet," the lead ranger replied. "It's hesitating. Don't provoke it unless we have to." The grizzly stomped the ground, its massive paws sending tremors through the dirt. It wasn't retreating, but it wasn't advancing either. The tranquilizer dart was beginning to take effect, and the bear's movements became slower, more sluggish. Its growls softened into labored breaths, its head swaying as if struggling to stay upright. Finally, the bear let out a deep huff, its body collapsing onto the ground with a heavy thud. The forest fell silent, the tension hanging in the air like a coiled spring. The lead ranger rushed to Leo's side, his face pale as he took in the extent of the injuries. "Leo, can you hear me?" he asked, his voice trembling. Leo managed a weak nod, his breath shallow and uneven. "I'm still here," he rasped, every word a struggle. Blood soaked through his uniform, pooling beneath him. The ranger's eyes darted to the wounds on Leo's shoulder and torso, deep gashes that would require immediate medical attention. "We need to move him now," the female ranger said, kneeling beside Leo. She grabbed a medical kit from her pack, her hands working quickly to apply pressure to the bleeding. "Stay with me, Leo," she urged. "You're going to make it." The third ranger radioed for a medevac, his voice steady despite the urgency of the situation. "This is Ranger Team Bravo. We have an injured ranger, multiple lacerations from a bear attack, requesting immediate airlift. Coordinates are being transmitted now." As the team worked to stabilize Leo, the subdued grizzly lay nearby, its massive chest rising and falling with slow, labored breaths. The tranquilizer had done its job, but the sight of the predator still sent chills through the team. "What happened here?" the lead ranger asked, glancing at the bear. "This isn't normal behavior." Leo tried to speak, his voice barely a whisper. "Something wrong with it," he managed, his words slurring as shock began to take hold. "Wasn't acting like a bear." The rangers exchanged uneasy glances. It wasn't uncommon for animals to display aggression, but this level of rage and the bear's erratic behavior were unusual. The lead ranger nodded grimly. "We'll figure it out. But first, let's get you out of here." The sound of helicopter blades slicing through the air broke the uneasy silence. The medevac had arrived, its descent kicking up leaves and dirt as it landed in the clearing. The rangers worked quickly to secure Leo onto a stretcher, their movements precise and efficient despite the high stakes. As they lifted him into the helicopter, Leo's vision blurred, the world around him fading into a haze of sounds and shapes. He felt the cool touch of an oxygen mask against his face, the voice of the medic barely registering as they reassured him. "You're going to be okay. Just hang in there." The helicopter rose, carrying Leo away from the forest and toward the nearest hospital. Below, the remaining rangers stood guard, their eyes fixed on the tranquilized bear. It would need to be relocated and evaluated, but for now, their priority was ensuring no further incidents occurred. Hours later, Leo awoke in a sterile hospital room, the steady beeping of monitors filling the air. His body ached, every movement a reminder of the grizzly's ferocity. He turned his head slowly, his eyes landing on the familiar face of the lead ranger, who sat beside his bed. "Hey," the ranger said, relief evident in his voice. "You gave us quite a scare out there." Leo tried to smile, but the effort was too much. "Guess I owe you one," he said weakly. "Just doing our job," the ranger replied, his expression serious. "But you were right about that bear. Something wasn't normal. We've got wildlife specialists looking into it." Over the next few days, the incident became the talk of the park. Wildlife experts examined the grizzly, searching for clues to its unusual behavior. Blood tests revealed elevated levels of a toxin, likely ingested through contaminated food or water. The toxin could explain the bear's aggression, but it also raised new questions about the source of the contamination. The findings sparked an investigation into the park's ecosystem. Teams scoured the area, testing water sources and examining plant life for signs of pollution. What they discovered was alarming: a previously unknown fungal pathogen spreading through the forest, affecting both flora and fauna. The pathogen, while not immediately harmful to humans, had a profound impact on wildlife, altering their behavior and disrupting the delicate balance of the ecosystem. The discovery prompted a massive conservation effort, with resources poured into containing the pathogen and protecting the park's inhabitants. For Leo, the incident marked a turning point in his career. The scars on his body were a constant reminder of the encounter, but they also symbolized his resilience and dedication to protecting the natural world. Despite the trauma, he returned to the park, his determination stronger than ever. He worked closely with the conservation teams, using his first-hand experience to guide their efforts. His knowledge of the park's terrain and wildlife proved invaluable, and his story inspired others to take action in preserving Yellowstone's beauty and biodiversity. As the years passed, the memory of the grizzly attack became a legend among the park rangers, a tale of courage, survival, and the unpredictable power of nature. For Leo, it was a reminder of the bond between humans and the wild, a bond that required respect, understanding, and unwavering commitment. And though the forest still held its secrets, Leo knew one thing for certain: he would continue to protect it, no matter the cost. Months had passed since the harrowing attack, but the memory lingered like a shadow over Leo's every move. The grizzly's image, its wild eyes, the raw power in its charge, haunted his dreams. Yet, in those same dreams, he saw the forest calling to him, urging him to return. Yellowstone was not just a job or a place, it was a part of him, and he couldn't let fear sever that connection. Leo's recovery had been slow but steady. Physical therapy helped him regain strength, and the deep gashes on his body began to heal, leaving behind scars that told a story of survival. Mentally, however, the journey was more complex. He found himself questioning every decision he had made that day. Should he have waited for backup? Should he have approached the bear differently? The doubts were relentless, but they also fueled his determination to learn and grow. Back at the ranger station, Leo was greeted with warm smiles and words of encouragement from his colleagues. "Good to have you back, Martinez," one of them said, clapping him on the shoulder. "The forest hasn't been the same without you." "Thanks," Leo replied, his voice steady. "But I've got a lot to catch up on." The lead ranger, Alex, approached him with a knowing look. "Take it slow, Leo. You've been through a lot. No one expects you to jump back in right away." Leo nodded, appreciating the support. But deep down, he knew he needed to face the forest again, not just for his job, but for himself. As part of his reintegration, Leo was assigned to a team investigating the fungal pathogen that had caused the grizzly's unusual behavior. The discovery of the pathogen had sent shockwaves through the conservation community, prompting collaborations between scientists, rangers, and environmental agencies. The pathogen, named Mycotox 47, was unlike anything they had encountered before. It spread through spores, contaminating water sources and disrupting the neurological functions of wildlife. Leo's first-hand experience made him an invaluable asset to the team. He shared his observations from the day of the attack, describing the bear's erratic movements and heightened aggression. His insights helped the scientists piece together the pathogen's effects, painting a clearer picture of its impact on the ecosystem. The team's efforts led them to a remote part of the park where the pathogen seemed most concentrated. It was an area untouched by human activity, pristine wilderness teeming with life. As they ventured deeper into the forest, Leo felt a mix of awe and unease. The beauty of the landscape was undeniable, but the knowledge of the hidden threat lurking beneath the surface added a layer of tension. Their mission was to collect samples, soil, water, and vegetation for analysis. Leo took the lead, his familiarity with the terrain guiding their path. The forest felt alive in a way he hadn't experienced before, as if every rustling leaf and distant bird call held a secret. As they reached a small clearing, the group paused to take in the scene. A crystal-clear stream flowed through the area, its waters glinting in the sunlight. But the tranquility was deceptive. The scientists set to work, carefully collecting water samples and examining the surrounding vegetation. Leo stood guard, his senses on high alert. The forest had taught him to expect the unexpected, and he wasn't taking any chances. His hand rested on the tranquilizer rifle slung over his shoulder, a precaution he hoped he wouldn't need to use. "Leo," one of the scientists called out, breaking his train of thought. "Take a look at this." He approached, his curiosity piqued. The scientist held up a plant with vibrant orange leaves, its surface speckled with tiny, pulsating spores. "This is it," she said, her voice tinged with excitement and caution. The pathogen in its purest form. The discovery was a breakthrough, but it also came with risks. The spores were highly volatile, capable of spreading through the air if disturbed. The team worked meticulously, sealing the samples in airtight containers and marking the area for further study. As they prepared to leave, a sudden rustling in the underbrush caught their attention. The group froze, their eyes scanning the forest for the source of the sound. Leo's hand tightened on his rifle, his heart pounding in his chest. From the shadows emerged a figure, a grizzly, its massive form towering over the foliage. But this bear was different. Its fur was patchy, its movements sluggish yet deliberate. Its eyes, once filled with primal rage, now held a strange, almost vacant look. "It's infected," Leo murmured, his voice barely audible. The team backed away slowly, their movements careful and measured. The bear sniffed the air, its head swaying as if disoriented. It let out a low growl, more a sound of confusion than aggression. Leo's instincts kicked in. "We need to tranquilize it and get it to the wildlife center," he said. "This could give us more answers." The lead scientist nodded, her face pale but resolute. "Do it carefully. We can't risk spreading the spores." Leo aimed the tranquilizer rifle, his hand steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. He took a deep breath and fired, the dart striking the bear's flank. The animal stumbled, its massive frame swaying before collapsing onto the ground. The team worked quickly to secure the bear, using specialized equipment to prevent contamination. As they loaded the tranquilized animal onto a transport vehicle, Leo couldn't help but feel a mix of relief and sorrow. The grizzly, once a symbol of untamed wilderness, now bore the scars of humanity's impact on nature. Back at the wildlife center, the bear underwent a thorough examination. The findings were sobering. The pathogen had infiltrated its nervous system, causing neurological damage and altering its behavior. The bear's condition was a stark reminder of the delicate balance between humans and the environment, a balance that had been disrupted. The team's efforts didn't go unnoticed. Their discoveries prompted policy changes, leading to stricter regulations on activities in protected areas. The findings also spurred public awareness campaigns, educating people about the importance of conservation and the interconnectedness of all life. For Leo, the experience was transformative. He had faced the raw power of nature, survived its fury, and emerged with a deeper understanding of its fragility. The scars on his body were a testament to his journey, but they were also a reminder of his purpose. He returned to the forest with a renewed sense of mission, working tirelessly to protect the park and its inhabitants. The forest, in turn, welcomed him back, its towering trees and winding trails offering solace and a sense of belonging. Weeks after the bear had been transported to the wildlife center, Leo found himself back in the same clearing where they had encountered the infected animal. The site had been flagged as a high-risk zone, and research teams were now operating under stringent safety protocols. Hazmat suits and air filters became a part of the routine, a stark contrast to the raw, untamed beauty of Yellowstone. Leo adjusted his helmet, the visor slightly fogged from his breath. The dense forest around him felt different now, less like a sanctuary and more like a battlefield. The pathogen wasn't just a threat to the wildlife. It had the potential to cascade into broader ecosystems. Every step they took to contain it felt like walking a tightrope between preservation and destruction. The team had made progress. Tracing the origins of the fungal spores had led to a surprising discovery. Deep within a remote section of the forest, near a series of interconnected hot springs, they had found a cluster of decayed plants emitting high concentrations of mycotox 47. The area had likely been undisturbed for centuries, allowing the pathogen to evolve in isolation. However, recent seismic activity might have exposed it to the surface, spreading the spores. Leo stood near the perimeter of the hot springs, watching as scientists carefully extracted soil samples. The springs bubbled quietly, their vibrant colors betraying the hidden danger beneath. The water's mineral-rich content, combined with geothermal heat, had created the perfect environment for the pathogen to thrive. One of the scientists, Dr. Evelyn Harper, approached Leo with a sample container in hand. "Take a look at this," she said, holding the container up to the light. Inside was a chunk of soil, its surface shimmering with an almost iridescent sheen. Tiny, pulsating spores were visible, glowing faintly under the sunlight. "This is ground zero," Evelyn said, her voice tinged with both excitement and concern. "The spores are more active here than anywhere else we've tested. If this spread further..." Leo didn't need her to finish the sentence. The implications were clear. "What's the plan?" he asked, his tone measured. "We're coordinating with biologists and chemists to develop a containment solution," Evelyn replied. "Something that can neutralize the spores without harming the surrounding ecosystem. But it's going to take time." Time wasn't a luxury they had. Reports of infected wildlife were increasing, and while the pathogen hadn't yet affected humans, the potential for cross-species transmission couldn't be ignored. The team worked tirelessly, often into the late hours of the night, their determination fueled by the stakes at hand. Leo threw himself into the work, his expertise in navigating the forest proving invaluable. He led teams to remote locations, mapping the spread of the pathogen and identifying potential containment zones. Each day brought new challenges, but also moments of triumph, small victories that kept them moving forward. One such moment came when they discovered a natural antifungal agent in the bark of a rare tree species native to the area. The tree, known as the silverwood, produced a compound that inhibited the growth of mycotox 47. The find was a game-changer, offering a glimmer of hope in their uphill battle. As the team refined their containment strategy, Leo found himself reflecting on the bigger picture. The pathogen was a stark reminder of humanity's delicate relationship with nature. For all its beauty and resilience, the natural world was vulnerable to the unintended consequences of human actions. The seismic activity that had unearthed the pathogen was likely linked to geothermal drilling miles away, a sobering connection that highlighted the ripple effects of environmental exploitation. Leo's thoughts were interrupted by a call over the radio. "Martinez, we've got movement near the northern perimeter. Could be another infected animal." He grabbed his gear and headed toward the coordinates, his heart pounding with anticipation. As he approached the area, he spotted the source of the disturbance, a herd of elk grazing near the edge of the forest. One of the animals, a young buck, exhibited signs of infection. Its movements were jerky, its head twitching unnaturally. Leo signaled to the team, and they moved into position. The plan was to tranquilize the buck and transport it to the wildlife center for observation. Leo raised his rifle, aiming carefully, and fired. The dart hit its mark, and the buck stumbled before collapsing onto the ground. The team worked quickly, securing the animal and ensuring that no spores were released during the process. As they loaded the buck onto a transport vehicle, Leo couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. The forest was struggling, its balance disrupted by forces beyond its control. Back at the wildlife center, the buck underwent a thorough examination. The findings were consistent with previous cases, but there was a silver lining. The antifungal compound from the silverwood tree showed promise in treating the infection. It wasn't a cure, but it was a step in the right direction. The discovery reinvigorated the team, their efforts now focused on scaling up the production of the compound. With the help of botanists and chemists, they developed a spray that could neutralize spores in the field. The spray was tested on contaminated areas, and the results were encouraging. The spread of the pathogen began to slow, giving the forest a chance to heal. For Leo, the progress was a source of pride, but also a reminder of the work that still lay ahead. The scars on his body had faded, but the experience had left an indelible mark on his soul. He had faced the raw power of nature, survived its fury, and emerged with a deeper understanding of its fragility. As he stood in the clearing where it all began, Leo took a deep breath, the crisp mountain air filling his lungs. The forest was still, its towering trees and winding trails holding secrets he would never fully uncover. But that was the beauty of Yellowstone, the mystery, the unpredictability, the reminder that life was both fragile and resilient. Leo's radio crackled to life, pulling him from his thoughts. "Martinez, we've got a situation near the western ridge. Need you to take point." He smiled, the weight of his gear a familiar comfort as he headed toward the call. The forest had given him so much: challenges, lessons, and a purpose. And he would continue to give back, protecting its beauty for generations to come. The call to the western ridge brought Leo to one of Yellowstone's most remote and rugged areas. The terrain was steep, the dense forest stretching as far as the eye could see. This part of the park was known for its solitude, a haven for wildlife, and a place where few humans ventured. As Leo hiked the narrow trail, the weight of his gear pressing against his shoulders, he felt the familiar mix of anticipation and resolve that had guided him through countless missions. The situation at hand involved a series of unusual animal deaths. Hikers had reported finding carcasses of deer and smaller mammals, their bodies untouched by scavengers. The eerie pattern suggested a connection to the pathogen, but the exact cause remained a mystery. Leo's job was to investigate and gather evidence, a task that required both expertise and caution. Arriving at the first reported site, Leo was struck by the stillness of the forest. Even the usual sounds of birds and insects were absent, as if the area itself was holding its breath. The carcass of a deer lay sprawled on the forest floor, its body unnaturally rigid. Leo knelt beside it, examining the scene with meticulous care. The deer's fur was matted, its eyes clouded over. Tiny spores were visible around its nostrils, the same iridescent particles that had been found at the hot springs. Leo took out his sampling kit, collecting swabs and soil samples to be analyzed later. The air felt heavy, the weight of the forest silence pressing down on him. As he moved deeper into the area, Leo found more signs of the pathogen's presence. Trees with discolored bark, patches of soil that glimmered faintly under the sunlight, and more animal carcasses scattered throughout the forest. Each discovery added to the growing sense of urgency. The pathogen was spreading, and the forest was suffering. Leo's radio crackled to life, breaking the silence. "Martinez, do you copy?" "Copy," he replied, his voice steady. "I found multiple signs of contamination. Sending coordinates now." "Understood," came the response. "We're dispatching a team to assist. Be advised, the area is considered high risk. Proceed with caution." Leo continued his survey, his movements deliberate and methodical. The forest felt like a living entity, its pulse slowed by the pathogen's grip. Yet, even in its weakened state, the resilience of nature shone through. New shoots emerged from the soil, and the distant sound of a woodpecker echoed through the trees, a reminder that life, no matter how fragile, persisted. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the forest, Leo set up a temporary camp. The glow of his lantern illuminated the surrounding trees, their silhouettes forming a protective circle. Despite the day's challenges, he felt a sense of peace, the forest's quiet embrace offering a moment of solace. The next morning, the support team arrived, their presence a welcome sight. Together, they mapped the affected area, their combined efforts painting a clearer picture of the pathogen's reach. The samples collected by Leo provided crucial data, revealing the extent of contamination and guiding their containment strategy. One of the team members, a young ranger named Elena, approached Leo with a question that had been on everyone's mind. "Do you think we can save the forest?" she asked, her voice tinged with both hope and doubt. Leo considered her question, his gaze fixed on the trees. "I think nature has a way of surprising us," he said. "It's resilient, just like us. But it's going to take everything we've got." Their efforts soon bore fruit. The antifungal spray derived from a silverwood tree proved effective in neutralizing spores, and targeted applications began to slow the pathogen's spread. Areas that had once been lifeless showed signs of recovery, the forest's vibrant hues returning like a phoenix rising from the ashes. For Leo, the progress was a testament to the power of collaboration. Scientists, rangers, and volunteers worked side by side, their shared commitment to protecting Yellowstone forging bonds that transcended their individual roles. Each day brought new challenges, but also moments of triumph that reminded them why they fought so hard. One such moment came when a pair of wolves, once thought lost to the pathogen, were spotted near the western ridge. Their sleek forms moved gracefully through the forest, their howls echoing like a song of survival. It was a sight that filled Leo with awe, a symbol of the forest's enduring spirit. Yet, even as they celebrated these victories, Leo knew the work was far from over. The pathogen had left scars on the ecosystem, scars that would take years to heal. But he also knew that the forest was worth every effort, every sacrifice. As the weeks turned into months, Leo found himself reflecting on his journey. The attack that had nearly taken his life had also given him a deeper appreciation for the interconnectedness of life. The forest was more than a collection of trees and animals. It was a community, a web of relationships that depended on balance and harmony. Standing in the clearing where it all began, Leo felt a sense of closure. The forest was healing, and so was he. The scars on his body were a testament to his resilience, a reminder of the challenges he had faced and the lessons he had learned. The call of the wild had brought him back to Yellowstone, and it was a call he would answer for the rest of his life. As time passed, Yellowstone began to recover, though the scars of the pathogen's impact were still evident. Leo, now a key figure in the park's conservation efforts, had earned a reputation not just as a ranger, but as a leader who embodied the resilience of the forest itself. His experience had taught him not only the importance of preserving nature, but also the value of perseverance in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. The recovery efforts were relentless. Teams of rangers and scientists combed through the park daily, applying the antifungal spray to infected areas and closely monitoring wildlife for signs of illness. Leo often found himself working alongside Elena, whose sharp instincts and unwavering dedication had made her an indispensable part of the team. One morning, as the first light filtered through the trees, Leo and Elena ventured into a section of the park that had been particularly hard hit by the pathogen. The area, once vibrant with life, had been eerily quiet for months. But today, there was something different in the air, a faint sense of renewal, as if the forest itself was beginning to breathe again. "Do you hear that?" Elena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Leo nodded, a small smile forming on his face. The sound of birdsong, faint but unmistakable, drifted through the trees. It was a simple yet profound reminder of why they were there, to protect and nurture the life that called Yellowstone home. As they walked, they came across a cluster of young saplings sprouting from the forest floor. The sight filled them with a sense of hope. The pathogen had devastated much of the vegetation in this area, but nature was fighting back. The saplings, their leaves glistening with dew, were a testament to the forest's resilience. "This is what it's all about," Leo said, crouching down to examine the saplings. "Every little victory adds up." Elena nodded, her eyes bright with determination. "And we're not done yet." Their next stop was a small stream that wound its way through the forest. The water, once contaminated with spores, now ran clear, its surface reflecting the sunlight like a ribbon of glass. It was here that they planned to release a pair of wolves that had been rehabilitated at the Wildlife Center. The wolves, siblings named Shadow and Ember, had been found near death but had made a remarkable recovery. As the transport cages were opened, the wolves stepped hesitantly onto the forest floor, their movements cautious but purposeful. Shadow, the larger of the two, raised his head and let out a low howl, a sound that echoed through the trees like a call to the wild. "Their home," Elena said, her voice filled with emotion. Leo watched as the wolves disappeared into the forest, their sleek forms blending seamlessly with the shadows. It was a moment he would carry with him forever, a reminder of what was possible when humans worked in harmony with nature. As the months turned into years, the forest continued to heal. The antifungal spray proved to be an effective tool in managing the pathogen, and the discovery of natural antifungal agents opened new avenues for research. The team's efforts extended beyond Yellowstone, with similar pathogens being studied in other parts of the country. Leo's role evolved as well. He began giving talks and workshops, sharing his experiences and the lessons he had learned. His story inspired others to take action, fostering a sense of collective responsibility for the environment. One of his most memorable talks took place at a conservation summit, where he addressed an audience of scientists, policymakers, and environmentalists. Standing on the stage, he spoke from the heart, his words carrying the weight of his journey. "Yellowstone is more than a park," he said. "It's a symbol of the delicate balance that sustains life on this planet." The pathogen we faced was a wake-up call, a reminder that our actions have consequences. But it was also a testament to the resilience of nature and the power of collaboration. He paused, looking out at the audience. Every one of us has a role to play in protecting our planet. Whether it's preserving a forest, cleaning a river, or simply making choices that reduce our impact, we can all make a difference. And it's worth it, because when we protect nature, we protect ourselves. The room erupted in applause, the sound filling the space like a wave. Leo felt a sense of pride, not just for himself, but for the entire team that had worked tirelessly to bring Yellowstone back to life. Back in the park, life carried on. The forest, though changed, was thriving once more. Wildlife roamed freely, streams ran clear, and the air was filled with the sounds of nature. For Leo, each day was a new chapter in his journey, a journey that had brought him closer to the heart of Yellowstone and deepened his connection to the natural world. As he stood on a ridge overlooking the valley, the sun setting in a blaze of orange and gold, he felt a profound sense of gratitude. The challenges he had faced had tested him in ways he never could have imagined, but that also shaped him into the person he was meant to be. The forest had given him so much strength, purpose, and a sense of belonging. And in return, he would continue to give his all, protecting the wild beauty of Yellowstone for generations to come. The years following the resurgence of Yellowstone brought not just recovery, but a flourishing ecosystem. Leo Martinez, now regarded as one of the park's greatest stewards, continued to dedicate his life to preserving the park's legacy. The lessons learned from the Mycotox 47 outbreak reshaped conservation strategies worldwide, and Yellowstone became a case study in how humanity could overcome environmental crises through science, collaboration, and sheer determination. One of the most significant milestones came when Yellowstone was declared pathogen-free. It was a moment of celebration, not just for the team, but for every visitor who had come to love the park. A ceremony was held to commemorate the achievement, with rangers, scientists, and local communities gathering to honor the collective effort that had saved the forest. At the ceremony, Leo stood at the podium, the towering trees of Yellowstone forming a natural backdrop. His voice was steady as he addressed the crowd, his words carrying the weight of his journey. When I first set foot in this park as a young ranger, I thought I understood what it meant to protect nature, he began. But it wasn't until we faced one of the greatest challenges in Yellowstone's history that I truly understood the depth of that responsibility. He paused, looking out at the faces before him. This park has taught me that nature is not just something to be admired, it's something to be fought for. It's a part of who we are, and its survival is our survival. The crowd erupted in applause, the sound echoing through the forest like a heartbeat. It was a moment of triumph, a testament to the resilience of both nature and the human spirit. After the ceremony, Leo took a quiet walk through the park. The trails, once marked by signs of devastation, were now vibrant with life. Wildflowers bloomed along the path, their colors a stark contrast to the muted tones of the past. Birds flitted through the trees, their songs filling the air with a melody of renewal. As he walked, Leo reflected on the journey that had brought him to this point. The scars on his body were a reminder of the battles he had fought, but they were also a badge of honor, a symbol of the strength he had found within himself and the connections he had forged with others. One of those connections was with Elena, who had become a close friend and trusted colleague. Together, they had faced countless challenges, their shared commitment to Yellowstone forging a bond that went beyond the professional. "I'll never forget the day we released Shadow and Ember," Elena said as they walked together along the ridge. "It was the first time I truly believed we could turn things around." Leo nodded, a smile tugging at the corners of his lips. It was a turning point for all of us. Moments like that remind us why we do what we do. They stopped at a lookout point, the valley stretching out before them in all its glory. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the landscape. It was a view that never failed to take Leo's breath away. "This place has a way of putting everything into perspective," he said. "No matter how big the challenges we face, nature always finds a way." As the seasons changed, so did the rhythm of life in the park. New initiatives were launched to protect Yellowstone from future threats, including advanced monitoring systems and stricter regulations on human activity. The lessons of the past had not been forgotten. They had become the foundation for a more sustainable future. Leo played a key role in these efforts, his experience and leadership guiding the next generation of rangers and scientists. He took pride in mentoring young recruits, sharing the knowledge he had gained through years of trial and triumph. For Leo, it was a way of giving back, of ensuring that Yellowstone's legacy would endure. One day, As he was leading a group of trainees through the forest, they came across a pair of wolves, a mother and her pup, resting near a stream. The sight brought a smile to Leo's face, a reminder of the interconnectedness of life in the park. "See how they move, how they're always aware of their surroundings," he said to the group. "That's what it means to live in harmony with nature. Every action, every choice has a ripple effect." The trainees watched in awe as the wolves disappeared into the trees, their graceful movements a testament to the beauty of the wild. In the years that followed, Leo's contributions to Yellowstone were recognized on a national level. He received numerous awards for his work, but for him, the greatest reward was the park itself, the knowledge that it would continue to thrive for generations to come. On his final day as a ranger, a retirement ceremony was held in his honor. Colleagues, friends, and family gathered to celebrate his remarkable career, their words of gratitude and admiration filling the air. As Leo stood before them, he felt a mix of emotions: pride, gratitude, and a touch of sadness. Yellowstone had been his home, his sanctuary, and saying goodbye was not easy. But as he looked out at the faces of those who would carry on his work, he felt a deep sense of peace. The future of the park was in good hands, and he knew that its story was far from over. "Yellowstone has given me more than I could ever put into words," he said, his voice steady. "It's been my privilege to serve this park, to protect its beauty and its legacy. And though my time as a ranger has come to an end, my love for this place will never fade." The crowd erupted in applause, their cheers echoing through the forest. It was a fitting farewell for a man who had dedicated his life to protecting one of nature's greatest treasures. As Leo walked away from the ceremony, the forest seemed to envelop him in its embrace. The trails, the trees, the wildlife, they were all a part of him now, woven into the fabric of his being. And though his journey as a ranger had come to an end, his journey with Yellowstone will continue, forever etched in the heart of the park he loved so dearly.